David Copperfield in Las Vegas. I opened for him, and you had to sign a release that you wouldn't tell anyone how the tricks were done because I had access to backstage. And I was like, no, I would never tell anyone. I tried to find out every goddamn trick. And I was going to tell anyone I saw in the casino.
You know what to do. Please welcome Rosie O'Donnell. Do better than that.
Hi, everybody. Before we even start, I just want to say thank you all for being so nice. This was my first Comic-Con, and everybody was very, very sweet, and I have so far had a great time, except they keep yelling at me to take less time with the people at the table. And I'm like, I'm a talk show host. I'm curious. What, they're like, well, you should just don't even look. And so I'm like, don't even look. Can you imagine what kind of a psycho bitch I would have to be? Hi, I just flew in from Toronto. Screw you, next! So aside from that, I'm getting another Diet Coke, proving once again that fat people drink Diet Coke. But I've lost 34 pounds, so I'm hoping not to find it. Sorry, take it away, sir.
No, it's so great to have you here.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And I really want to dig into your Yep.
Oh, we got a lot of mics.
Always be somewhat prepared.
There you go.
So real passion for stand-up comedy that you started. It was so natural. How old were you when you first started out, and something maybe about the first time that you got on stage and all of that good stuff?
Well, I started doing stand-up when I was in high school. I was 16 years old, and there was a comedian who was about 30, and he owned a comedy club in our town, and his little brother was in my grade in school. So we did a show at the end of the year, Senior Follies, where you made fun of the teachers, and this guy came over to me and said, my name's Richie, I'm Craig's brother, and I own the East Side Comedy Club. Would you come down and do a set? And I thought, no, I don't want to be. I want to be an actress. I want to be on Broadway. I don't really want to do stand-up. And he's like, why don't you just try it? So I told all my friends, and it was a Friday night, so they all could show up because there was no school the next day. And I made fun of people like, oh, Mitchell's going out with Mary Ann and Lisa doesn't know. And nobody in the audience who didn't know me was laughing, but all my friends were pissing their pants laughing. And then the owner of the club, Richie, came over to me and said, can you come back Sunday night? And I thought, sure, this is so easy. And I came back Sunday night, and none of my friends could show up because it was a school night. And it was all a regular audience, and I died a horrible death on that stage. And I walked off, and Richie goes, now you understand, some nights you kill, some nights you get killed. Tonight, you got killed. But, like anything, when you're learning something new, whether it's an art form or a recipe or skiing or an athletic sport, it takes persistence and 10,000 hours, they say, to become an expert at anything. So if you want to be like in the WNBA, ladies, start shooting those hoops every day for hours, and your muscle memory will kick in. And that's what happened to me for stand-up. I watched everyone. 16, 17, 18, I started to get gigs on the road when I was a senior in high school. And I made $200 in Warren, Ohio for one weekend. And I thought I was the richest person in the world. It was Tickle's Comedy Club in Warren, Ohio. And that was my very first road gig. And then I was lucky. I got to open for some performers, open for the Pointer Sisters, open for a bunch of different artists. David Copperfield in Las Vegas, I opened for him. And you had to sign a release that you wouldn't tell anyone how the tricks were done because I had access to backstage. And I was like, no, I would never tell anyone. I tried to find out every goddamn trick. And I was going to tell anyone I saw in the casino. But I didn't do that. And we actually had a fun time. And then, I was doing Star Search in 1984.
Yes.
I was 22. I had a very similar haircut, which was not trendy back then. And I did, I won 6 weeks in a row, which was something like $18,000, which was more money than I had ever had. I was 22. I was in LA. And from there on, I got a sitcom, Give Me a Break with Nell Carter, who was in her last year of the show and was very unhappy. She was having some problems in her life and was very unhappy to be at work. And so I was so excited to be at my first sitcom. I walked in there so excited. I remember I put nail polish on. What was I thinking? But I had pink nail polish. That was going to seal the deal. And I went in, and the first day, the two little boys, Joey and Matthew Lawrence, were sitting there 5 and 8. And the mother walks in to put a sweater on them. And Nell Carter said in front of me, the writers, the mother, and the children, get that "see you next Tuesday" out of my rehearsal hall. Only she didn't say "see you next Tuesday." Yeah. And I remember thinking, who would ever say that in front of children about their mother, And it went downhill from there. The crew didn't like her, and she was not nice. And it's funny because when she died, they called me and said, "What do you have to say?" And I was like, nothing. Yeah. Because I didn't want to, in her death, say, "Oh, by the way, when I worked with her was the worst time for her emotionally and mentally in her life, and she was a mean person." But, you meet people at various stages, and showbiz is like any job. If you work in a school or you work at a deli, there's one asshole there usually, and you have to deal with them. It's the same thing in showbiz, right? Only the people who are assholes are sometimes famous. That, makes for Good People magazine stories, I guess.
So I got to ask, I want to back up about Star Search. How did that happen?
I was at that boy Richie Minervini's comedy club. Mm-hmm. I was 21. And this woman comes up to me in Comac, Long Island. This is not like the hub of Hollywood. And said, "My father is Ed McMahon." And I said, "Yeah, right." And she said, "No, look." And there's a card, and it says, "Claudia McMahon, talent search." And I said, "You just got this made. You're not, why would Ed McMahon's daughter?" She's like, "We're scouting for people for Star Search." And it had been on one season. And the next day, she called my house. I was still living with my parents. They called my house, and they said, "This is Star Search. You've been approved to be on the show." And I remember I had no clothes to wear. I didn't know what to wear, and I ended up buying a gray Willie Wear suit. Does anyone ever remember Willie Wear?
No.
Clothing? It wasn't the most flattering for television, let me just say that. And it was pale gray, and I had a pale pink rodeo shirt on. And like the nails in Give Me a Break, I wore high heels on my first. So if you ever are on YouTube and you're bored, type in Rosie O'Donnell Star Search 1984, and you're gonna laugh your ass off that I actually looked in the mirror and went, perfect. Mm-hmm. Let's go on TV, But it was a wonderful experience, and from there I started working in the middle of the country as a headliner because, back then there were not cable access, there was no cable TV, there were 4 channels, and Johnny rarely had women on. And so as a stand-up comic, you weren't very likely to get on television if you were a woman, and that was way back when. It's changed a little since then, but not so much. When they used to book 3 women on one night, they would promote it as, "It's estrogen night, all women's comedy," I'm like, they don't do that for the men, you know what? It's testosterone night, lots of dick jokes,
So, were there any comedic role models for you when you're starting out, comics that you admired their timing,
Well, it was never really stand-up comics. My mother really did not like Joan Rivers. She felt that she was mean to Elizabeth Taylor, and my mother loved and looked a little bit like Elizabeth Taylor. And so she always said to me, "That woman is not funny because she has to be mean." And if you're gonna be mean, it should be about yourself, not about other people. And at first, Joan was like, oh, I'm so ugly. Oh, I'm so ugly, right? And then it got to be, oh, Elizabeth Taylor's so fat. Oh, she's so fat. And when it got to that point, it didn't seem as funny to me. I did love Toadie Fields. I loved watching her on Merv and Mike. I did love Bette Midler and Barbra Streisand, and I still do. And, you know, if I were to pick the 2 or 3 women that admired me most, it would be Barbra Streisand, Bette Midler, and then probably Julie Andrews. Okay. You know, if I had to pick the 3 women that I thought if I could ever have a career or a life like them, what an amazing thing that would be. And now it's very weird for me still, which I know people find hard to believe, but when I like go in the room and I see Susan Sarandon, part of me goes, holy fuck, Thelma and Louise. Like, it doesn't like, right? And I know her, we are friends, we call each other on the phone, but I still have the moments of the ones who came before me of being overly enthused, because had I not been an entertainer, I would have been a school teacher. And I would have been in the Comic-Con waiting in the lines, because when I was in high school, there was a mall near our house that had celebrity soap stars, usually from Ryan's Hope or Loving, which many people don't remember. And I would cut out of school and wait there to get an autographed copy, not of a photo, of like a ditto. Remember dittos you got in school? Right, like a Xerox copy of a picture of Kate Mulgrew. And I waited like 4 hours and cut out of school and got in big trouble, but I never lost it and I still have it. And when she did my show, I said, you're not gonna believe this. And I pull it out, she's like, that's my real autograph. I go, I saw you in real life at my mall, you know? And it nearly blew my head apart.
So after stand-up, the transition into film, was that as challenging? Since you didn't have the material that you wrote, you were doing other people's writing. Did you find any problem with that?
No, because I always did plays in high school. Okay. I did musicals in high school. I really wanted to be an actress. It wasn't really stand-up that I was thinking about. And so when I got a phone call from my agent saying, can you play baseball? And I said, if there's one thing I can do better than Julia Roberts, it's baseball. And every actress in Hollywood was at the batting cages, including Julia, trying to hit the ball. And I was like, yo, sweetheart, you might want to hold the thin end of that bat. Good luck, pretty woman. Go out there. You can do it. But I knew if I didn't get League of Their Own that I shouldn't try to have a career in film, because I was a very good ball player and a very good athlete in high school. I was captain of all the teams and I played all the sports. And so when they said it was a movie about women playing baseball, I knew that if I didn't get that, there wasn't a chance that I was going to be cast in movies. And I got that movie, and thanks to Penny Marshall, and then she cast me opposite Madonna, who was the most famous woman at the world at the time. And, you know, it was a career-launching event for me. It was my first film, and, you know, all of these huge stars, Tom Hanks and Gina, and everybody was in that film, and it launched me to another level. And then I got my next role, Sleepless in Seattle, because Nora Ephron's son, Jacob, was a little gay kid who lived in the same building that I lived in, and he loved Madonna. So he told his mother, Mommy, you have to hire this girl. She's Madonna's best friend. They did a movie together, and so Nora had me in Red, but the reason I got that job in Sleepless was because her gay son loved Madonna and loved me in League of Their Own.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's now a writer at the New York Times.
Nice.
Just like his mom and his dad, brilliant journalist and brilliant writer. And Jacob Bernstein is his name, and we're still friends, and he's doing very well.
Great. Can we switch on to the talk show?
Sure.
How did that develop? Was that something that you were behind completely, or were you approached to do a talk show?
At the time, Kathy Lee Gifford was threatening to leave Regis. And you know how she did that every few years for attention? It was kind of funny. But anyway, she did that, and I said to my agent, because I had just had my first child, and I didn't want to be away from him. And I had not had a nanny because I never knew a person in my life who had a nanny before I had a baby. And I wanted to stay home. I did one movie, Harriet the Spy, in Toronto. When Parker was about 6 months old, and I asked my cleaning lady to come with me to Toronto to be the nanny because I didn't even know how does one go about finding a nanny and how would I treat a nanny. So I knew how to treat the cleaning lady. We were friends. And I said, Maria, would you please come with me to Toronto? The third day I came back from a 12-hour day of shooting, not to complain, but it's long hours, the baby wouldn't come to me. Parker wouldn't come to me. And I go, come on. And he was hugging Maria. So I said to my agent, you need to get me a job that lets me stay in New York and lets me raise my children with their cousins and their family and steady and not be going to state to state to state. And so she said, well, why don't you do Regis and, for Kathy Lee Gifford? I said, totally. Tell him I'll do it. I had been a guest often and it had gone well and I loved Regis. And then she decided to stay. So someone from Warner Brothers called up and said, would you do it on your own? And I said, I would do it on my own, but it's not going to be like Geraldo, where people are punching and murdering each other. I mean, the year before my show started, someone was killed as a guest on the Jenny Jones show.
Wow.
So that's what daytime TV was for kids coming home from school, adults punching each other on TV to solve a problem. So I said, it's going to be Merv Griffin. And they were like, well, what if nobody wants to watch that? Are you going to change it into a single topic like Oprah? I said, no, it's just going to be Merv Griffin. And if it doesn't work, we'll be done. But luckily it worked. And people liked it. Yes.
Did you find that brought you back to your stand-up roots at all?
Totally, because you had to do that opening monologue. Even though I didn't really do it standing, I sat down at the desk and did it. But it was, it was important to keep living your life and going out and experiencing things because it was a very, very heavy workload. And I was the only person who was, the single host. And I had a lot of kids. So it was very, very taxing on me physically and emotionally. And my mother died when I was 10 years old and she was 39. And I was 39 and I was about to renew my contract. And I looked at my little son who was in first grade and I said, I can't do it. I want to be at the school plays. I'm not able to be a full-time parent and still do this job. So I left. And also, I had more money than God. And I thought, if I was Oprah Winfrey, my whole life I thought, if I was Oprah Winfrey, I would be naked with Stedman on an island somewhere. I wouldn't be working every day in Chicago, today we have Nazis, remember that? That was not the fun times from Oprah. But, so, we tried it, we did it. It worked, and we did it for 6 years, and then I felt like I was done, and I've never regretted it. People often think, did you regret it? You walked away. But I really feel that whatever the number is for you in your life, and it's changed for me throughout my life. Once I had X amount of money, and I knew that that was enough money for my future, my children's future, and their children's future, I knew I could stop working and be home with my children, and that's what I did.
That's so nice. That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
We're going to get to audience questions in just a bit. I just have two quick ones. Also, you were a magazine editor, writer, and producer. On top of all of these things, I know things change with people, but what do you kind of look back on as the most rewarding?
Well, it definitely was League of Their Own. Was the most physically rewarding and emotionally, and it taught me something that showbiz can be very beautiful. And Penny created a set of family members and was friends with the crew and had the same crew on every movie she ever did. So I knew that there was love to be found in making movies. So that, but as far as my life and career, what most people talk about today was the show and what it meant to them. And so I talked to the people who run this Comic-Con and I said, you know, instead of me sitting and having people wait in line, what I'd like to do next time is do Rosie O'Donnell Show live and have like, right? And we get a crowd like this, and then there's gonna be trivia about the old show. There's going to be the real guest who's at your Comic-Con, whether that's Susan Sarandon or Ernie Hudson or whoever's here. Have them as two guests, and then the rest will be prizes that you all can win for everyone. So this way, right?
I am so fired.
Are you? Why?
You're taking it. This is a great idea.
No, I'm not taking over. I'm doing my own show of the Rosie O'Donnell Show, like as a special event.
Oh, okay.
Like a ticketed one-night event, right?
I'm already signed up to go. That's awesome.
No. And then the fun part to me is, after the show's over, we're going to have catered pizza and stuff. And so that you can all take pictures or videos of me or whatever you want, but you'll have a full hour to come say hello, and it won't be waiting in line, and you know, I feel a little bit bad about that.
All right. Let's hear it for RosieCon.
Free stuff for everyone.
We're going to get to questions. If you have questions, just come out to the aisle. I have a quick question about Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes.
Very improvisational. Whose idea was it for you to kind of wrestle Larry?
It's Larry's idea all the time. He'll call up and he's like, Rosie, you free? I'm like, sure. He's like, come down to the set. So I'll go to the set in my regular clothes. That's what you wear. They don't give you your costume. He goes, okay, you and I, we met the same girl at the bar. We both got her number. Meet me at the bar. And you go and you do the scene, and then he goes, that was good, let's do it again, and don't do the part about the bubblegum. I said, okay, we do it again, and you just make shit up all day. And for somebody like me, who's an improvisational comedic actress, it's a joy to do. He said some people get very nervous when they don't have the script and they don't know where it's going, but I did improv for many years on stage in New York, and I love being able to improvise. So Larry is a genius, and I'm very, very grateful that he allowed me to play with him a couple times on his show.
Let's get to your questions. Thank you.
Hi, Rosie. So we know that you've mastered all of the different media platforms, from writer, producer, actor, etc. What's something that you always have wanted to take part in, and then maybe what's next?
Well, I have a movie that I'm starting in the fall. It's called Heavenly Waters. It's one American, that's me, and a whole cast of English people. And the story is, in the 1970s, we were in a band. I'm the drummer. And I start to have an affair with the lead singer's wife. So the band breaks up, and we haven't talked to each other in many years. And a rich woman in Greece dies, and in her will it says, if they all will do another show, I'll give them X amount of money. So they haven't seen each other in 30, 40 years, and they're now in Greece about to do a live performance, and they hate each other. And it's very funny, and I think what we heard yesterday is that possibly Liam Neeson is going to be one of the people in it too. I enjoy him. I think he's very nice and funny, and so we'll see. I mean, I've never had a lead in a movie. This is the first time I'm the female lead, the only female lead, and we'll see what happens, you know. But the one thing I would love to do is I would love to direct, but I don't really have 3 years of my life to focus in that kind of intense way, at least not right now with an 11-year-old at home. Did we all have a stroke? What just happened? Did the lights just go off, or does anyone smell burnt toast? Is it happening? All right, we're all right.
Our next question.
Yes.
Your role in the Flintstones, the live-action movie, that
Yes.
was wonderful. I loved you in that.
Thank you.
You obviously had to act barefooted, like walk around barefooted. Was it very weird or strange to like walk around on the set barefooted all the time? Or was it comfortable, or was it not that comfortable?
Well, you know what was interesting? It was all gravel, right? So it wasn't like sand, like it was gravelly, because it was supposed to be the gravel pits, of bedrock. But after about a month, I got such calluses that I felt like I could walk on hot stones because I was so used to doing it. But I will say Elizabeth Perkins complained about it a lot. She would complain every day and say that she wanted to glue rubber soles on her feet. And here I am out there like, whatever, like running around. But it wasn't that hard. It wasn't. And that was such a fun movie, and all of the genius stuff they came up with from a cartoon, like, the dishwasher and the clothespins, which I stole from the set. The clothespins when I was putting up the laundry, they were little alligators, and you open them up and they had teeth that grabbed onto the clothes. So I still have 4 of them in my house. But aside from that, I haven't been a good thief of things from the set. Lori Petty has her uniform, her hat, her glove, the cleats. What do I have? Nothing. I took my mitt. They called me a week later and said, "Did you take your mitt?" And it was my first movie, so I was like, "Yes, and I'm sorry, please." They go, "Bring it back to the studio," and I did. But I was stupid because a lot of people keep things, but I haven't done that besides the Flintstones clothespins. Hello.
Growing up, I was a big fan of Nip Tuck, and your character, Dawn Budge, was a surprise to me on that. How'd that opportunity come about? Did you audition for that, or did Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk reach out to you for it?
When the show first came on, I was a huge fan of it, and I called my agent and said, "Could you tell them that I would be so happy to do anything on the show? It's genius." And then Ryan called and said, "What are you thinking?" And I'm like, "Something wild and outrageous like you've been doing." And so he came up with Dawn Budge, who got her ear bitten off by an eagle, and, got her... Dawn Budge had a lot of issues. But it was a really funny character, and it's the one my teenage, now 20-year-old kids like the best. When mommy gets attacked by the eagle on the hang glider, my son was like, "That was so fucking funny." I'm like, you have no compassion for your mother, none. But I loved it, and they were very, very gracious, and I did a couple episodes, and I loved it. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Rosie. First of all, I want to thank you for coming. I've been a big fan of yours ever since I was little. My question is, how long did it take you to practice the hot dog scene in A League of Their Own?
One take. And Penny said, this is what Penny would do, literally, from the beginning of the movie. She'd go, "I need somebody to go over there, maybe run a little bit in the wall. You see the wall, people at the wall, there'll be a hot dog down there. If you hit the wall, you get the hot dog, you mouth, you come up. Anybody want to do that?" And everybody's like, "What the fuck did she say?" And I'm from New York, and I spoke Penny Marshall right away, so I'm like, "I'll do it." And she's like, "Rosie again, why doesn't anybody want to do the movie?" But nobody could understand her, so I heard what she wanted, and I did it, and I think it took 3 tries, but we got it each time. She just wanted more. But I did end up with weird, pelvic line bruise from hitting that little wall and going over it, because you want to make her happy, because when she was happy, the set was happy, so whatever she wanted me to do, I did. Some days she would go, "Rosie, these people have been sitting in the sun for 4 hours. They're thirsty. It's 100 degrees. Take the microphone, make them laugh." And so I'd stand out in the heat for 2 hours doing stand-up to the crowd because I didn't want her to be mad or upset. But I miss her very much. She was a very talented and lovely woman, and she gave us a fantastic piece of film.
Hello, Rosie. Great
Hello.
to meet you. Awesome. Thank you for coming to Pittsburgh. My question is, what was the most interesting or most memorable interview you had on the Rosie O'Donnell Show?
You know, I think the most memorable to me, besides Barbara Streisand, because she's in her own league, league of her own, good night. I think it was when I had Timothy Treadwell on. He was the man who lived with the bears, and they did a documentary called Grizzly Man. And he was on my show, and I had been watching stuff about his life and had seen the documentary, and it is beyond astounding. He had a plastic tent in the middle of bear country in Alaska for like 8 years. He actually was killed by a grizzly bear, and his girlfriend was, as well. And they have the audio of the attack that has been, you know, I've heard people who've heard it that says it's absolutely horrible. But when he was on my show, I said to him, listen to me, mister. I don't want to hear that you got eaten by a bear. And so I think of that a lot when I think of that. And and he did get eaten by a bear, you know. But the ones that the ones that are the most fun for me, Martin Short, you say hello, you're done. And he stands up and he goes, ha ha! and Andy Dick, who I know has had a lot of troubles with substance and mental health, he would come prepared with songs and Kmart clothes on, and he would say, I work at the Big Red K, little M-A-R-T, I work at the big... And he'd start doing a dance and stripping, and then his underwear is Kmart, and he's like, did you like that? I planned that last night. I'm like, Andy, I thought he was quite something as a guest. You know, I loved Celine. Celine and I would tease each other. I met her on Sleepless in Seattle. She did a song for that soundtrack. And so sad what's happened to Celine. You know, you only have your health, everybody. So we got to do all we can to make sure that we stay alive for our kids and our grandkids. So not that there's, you know, anything one does to get the thing that she has, nor is there blame associated with any of it, but it's just we have to sometimes, especially women, I only know this as a woman, we don't prioritize our health as much as we do our kids or our spouses, right? And we really have to do that. I had a heart attack when I was 50. I had a massive heart attack, 100% blockage of my LAD. And the doctor said I had 5 minutes before I died when I got to the doctor. Now, I waited 2 days. I had a heart attack on a Monday morning, and I went to the doctor Wednesday at 6 p.m. And the doctor said, put the electrodes on me. And before he could even read the tape, he picked up the phone and said something. And the next thing I know, there's noise in the hallway and there's stretchers and I'm being shaved and they're saying, you had a heart attack. And I'm like, I had a heart attack? I had a real heart attack? Now, I Googled the symptoms of heart attack. I had almost all of them. But I still said to myself, what's the chances? I mean, really, it would probably feel like Mike Tyson punched me in the tit. Like, this can't be a heart attack. And I just, you know, like, I talked myself out of it. And I almost talked myself right into my own early death. So just know, women, we have to advocate for ourselves and for the family of men who are standing beside us.
Okay, we got 5 minutes left, so we can do like 2 more questions.
Hi, Rosie.
Hi, honey.
You did a lot of work with Nickelodeon back in the day.
Yes, I did.
And you worked with a lot of talented young actors and actresses.
Yes, I did, but I was never on the set when they were filming. And I was always the host of Kids' Choice Awards and Kids' Choice events. So they did sort of think of me a little bit as like an adult in charge. It wasn't like I was hanging or friendly with them. But when I saw the latest documentary about that, Quiet on the Set, it was heartbreaking. And that poor Drake Bell and what he went through and the courage it takes, especially as a boy, to admit that you were sexually assaulted in violent and harmful ways, it takes something really special. And I wrote him, and I would encourage anyone who feels strongly about the subject to send him a little Instagram, which is what I did. And he wrote back, and a little Insta message on, you know how you can do that, whatever, direct message. Just to give him encouragement and let him know that he really did make a difference by standing up. And all those people who stood for the man who abused him and groomed him since he was a little boy. Very, very heartbreaking. But I love Nickelodeon, but I do feel like someone in that executive position should have known.
I just wondered if you still keep in contact with any of those people.
Any of the kids?
Yeah.
Well, like Hayden Panettiere, I knew her when she was a little baby actress, you know, and I saw her come out, and I'm like, oh, Nashville, like in my head, right? I don't think, oh, that's the baby girl who was on my show. She comes over and throws her arms around me, you know, and she's like, Rosie, and I'm like, this is little Hayden. This is the little girl, you know. So I didn't really become friends with any of the kids from those shows. I really loved Amanda Bynes, and I feel as though she was a young, untapped Carol Burnett, and something horrific must have happened to her. And I think you can see as you look in her eyes that she's a shattered soul at this point, and God knows I wish her nothing but health and happiness and healing. But it's heartbreaking. And I think all what went on there is inexcusable, and Nickelodeon hasn't even made a statement. And for me, a company I worked for so many years, it felt very disappointing.
Okay. Let's get these last two questions.
Hi, Rosie. First,
Hello.
I want to say thank you so much for being part of the legacy of hilarious women, and thank you for being an icon for noisy girls like me that felt really weird in school. When people are like, why are you so weird? Why don't you be quiet? And I wasn't, so thank you so much. My question is not as heartbreaking, but this is, I know you've been in Pittsburgh before for the League of Their Own series.
Yes.
What did you love about Pittsburgh? Is there anything you ate, any place you went?
Yes, now I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it's a very well-known, it's like Vietnamese kind of food. No, I don't think that was it. You know what I'm going to do? When I get off of here, I'm going to text my friend, and she'll text me back and tell me where we went. But it was like the most luxurious indoor, like you were in Bali. And it's wood, beautiful wood everywhere, and plants and trees in the middle of the restaurant. And the food was unbelievable. Does no one know what I'm talking about?
Nikki's Thai Garden. It's Nikki's Thai Garden.
Yes.
That's
it. What's it called? Pusanese.
Pussities, yeah.
Say that right. Pusanese.
Pussities. In Lawrenceville.
Puss in Boots, Pusanese, okay? Pusanese Garden, that's what it was. And it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to come back here because this whole Rosie O'Donnell Show idea, they are very interested in it. So maybe we'll do the first one here.
All right.
Last question. Here we go.
Last question, please.
Hey, Rosie.
Hi,
I just wanted to say thank you for your podcast, Onward. It brought me a lot of strength and inspiration over a very difficult year, and you've been inspiring so many of us for your whole career. I want to know what inspires you to keep inspiring the rest of us.
Truth and kindness, accountability, responsibility, and an open heart, you know? I think that what people loved about my show was not so much my show, but they loved how I love. I love musicals. I love other actors. I love people. I love children. I love old people. And I have a genuine, maybe, I don't know. My shrink says it's empathic, what your thing is. And she says it's like a house that has no window panes, no screen, not even a curtain or a shade. She goes, you have to learn that not every world crisis is yours to solve. And not, because believe me, I lose sleep over things that happen. And things I see on the news or read in the paper. And it almost debilitates me emotionally that I'm not able to think of anything other than don't starve the people, please, God damn it. You know, like I can't stop thinking that in my head. And those are called intrusive thoughts. And I take medication for that, and I take medication for this kind of empathic soul that I'm in. This is incarnation, right? This is every life has meaning, and every life is interesting to me. So.
And we love you dearly.
Thank you. Thank you
Rosie
so much.
O'Donnell.
Thank you.
See. Rosie.
Thank you for watching this video. I am Invader Zim, and I traffic in doom. And so, if you do not subscribe to this channel, you will have doom that befalls you by me, Invader Zim.